For eons, the floating island of Voyanui has been guarding an ancient secret. Hidden deep inside the island's burning core is a Kanohi mask, the mask of life, so powerful that it may mean life or death for the entire universe. But a devious and powerful gang of villains called the Paraka have come to steal the mask. They've enslaved the Matoran villagers of Voyanui, and they're determined not to let anything stand in their way. Once mask's in their hands, darkness will rule forever. Now 6 heroes have arrived on the shores of Voyanui to begin a mission that could very well be their last. They are the Toa, and their mission is to free the Matoran and discover the long-lost Mask of Life.
Welcome back to the Voyanui online game. So I should probably break down the character stats before we get into the complex gameplay stuff. Most other interface info is explained in the How to Play section, but there are some variable oddities on the stats chart that I just want to recap. The French to English translation is pas terrible, but like Tanuki's games, there are minor hiccups. How to play? Keyboard shortcuts and feature. Weapons and equipments. The XP bar is self-explanatory, though it's kind of annoying how it tracks the total amount of XP you've accumulated regardless of level. As in, by the time you get to level 40-something, the XP bar will always look like it's at 90% full, even though you just leveled up, since it accounts for all the XP you gathered from levels 1 to 39 to get to that point. A proper XP bar would reset the XP count so you can more properly see your progress to the next level, but whatever. Health points, action points, and movement points are also pretty simple ones. Additional range is simple as well, it just extends the amount of cells a ranged attack can go. Initiative rate takes some more explaining. Remember that while most of the visual assets are original, it still uses Dofus' engine and coding. Initiative is an unused data value from that game that essentially toys with the chance that certain enemies and players of a battle go in a certain turn order. The more initiative, the higher chance you'll get the first turn or an earlier turn for the rest of the battle, assuming you have more initiative points than the enemy. In VNOG, you always get the first turn, so this never comes into play. Long story short, it's a vestigial feature that will always stay at 0%, so don't even worry about it. Dodge rate increases the chance that an enemy's attack may miss. It should not be confused with Dofus' own lock-and dodge mechanic, which is completely different. I don't know if an anti-dodge secretly exists that allows you to not miss enemies as easily, nor how that stat would be influenced. Not shown is critical rate, which doesn't make a lot of sense because dodge and critical are lumped together for technique, yet dodge is actually displayed. Each weapon comes with its own bonus critical chance, which is something to consider. Now we get into elemental stats. Unlike Maze of Shadows, elemental weaknesses work in pairs in this game, as in a pair of elements will always be weak to their counterparts. The closest mechanic I know of that works similarly would be Wizard 101's Schools of Magic before the Lemuria update. Fire and Ice are a weakness pair, Water and Earth are a pair, and Air and Stone are a pair. Also remember that cosmetically, Earth and Stone are swapped. Stone is now black and associated with Nuparu, Radak, etc., while Earth is brown and associated with Huki, Avac, etc. It's a common mix-up that everyone undergoes when new to Bionicle. When I got the Chronicle series as a little kid, I didn't know which Toa looked like which, so I had to guess based on the image on the back, and for a full year I always thought the black one was Pohatu and the brown one was Onua. When you choose a Toa of a certain element, say fire, you will have innate stats relating to your element. You will be resistant to fire attacks but take more damage to ice attacks. In addition, you will deal more damage with fire weapons and deal less damage with ice weapons. Remember to prioritize gear depending on your element. If you're a water Toa and you have to, say, pick between an air spear and an earth spear, the air spear would be more beneficial, because it is not opposite to water like earth is, and therefore more neutral in terms of effectiveness. I think I forgot to mention the Toa silhouette at the center. Remind you of anyone? Yes, those bumps were the prototype Kaiden's mandibles the whole time, and not just some super buff pecs. Let's start up the game and pick our character. Interesting how the only one 100% set accurate is Huki, but like I said, prototype models. I will choose the element of ice for this run, because I just like the element aesthetically. I know, ironic username. Anyway, time for the first chapter, Entry of the Lagoon, or as I should say, the 0th chapter. That's not confusing or anything. The interrogation intro is self-explanatory. You have to be completely new to Bionicle to get at least one of the questions wrong, and even then the intro explains most of it. It does serve as a teaching element for later interrogations, though. Now, how I usually play the game, having memorized all the burial spots, is to dig them all up once the newest area of a chapter has been unlocked. I nickname areas based on the order of unlockability, so get used to me calling this place Area 1. You don't want burial spoilers in case you want to have fun finding the secrets yourself, skip to this timestamp. So the first metal piece is at the very front of the lighthouse, and if you make your way down to the western coast, you'll find a good chunk of the gear available in Area 1. But before we go there, to the north of the lighthouse by the icy coast is an ice claw. If you belong to a different element, there is also a water claw nearby that you can use as an alternative. Did I say north and west? Because technically the prongs of Voinui point towards Mononui, meaning that either the island of Mononui's north is 90 degrees perpendicular to this map's north, or that this map's north is the true north, the southern continent is a lie, and the Great Spirit Robot was sleeping sideways the whole time. I don't want to think about it. The north I'm referring to is how the game is oriented. There we go. Going back to the lighthouse right next door is the larger metal piece, and continuing on you will find said water claw. Claws are a simple melee weapon useful against Gothna, who are melee as well, making a nice early risk versus reward situation, as well as keeping the Gothna as a relative challenge for an enemy that can only hit close up. Its low AP cost means you can use it in tandem with your natural attack on the same turn, even if you have no armor on. Armor boosts AP to those unaware. And continuing on is a water Zamor launcher. An Earth one exists as an element alternative that I'll show the location of later. At the very edge of the island is an improvement pack. It is an optional item for a quest far later in the game, and it will save a lot of time if you just dig it up now. Though its long-term reward is underwhelming, I always get it for completion's sake. Slips into combat. Might as well show off how things work, right? Thank God for keyboard shortcuts. Alright, we leveled up. To counter enemies that dodge constantly later in the game, I usually focus on technique, but I have yet to see if other builds are more effective. I'll get back to you on that one. Returning to the lighthouse, going up one screen, and going right 2 screens will bring you to a memorable landmark, the Protodermis Lake, which according to the Bionicle website screenshot, originally looked like an ordinary lake of water. And here is a Protodermis Burnac that I'll talk about later. For now, remember that one screen above it houses a light attack armor of air, and one screen below it has that Earth Zamor launcher. Following the coast to the right of the lighthouse, all the way to the edge, hides a light attack armor of ice as an alternative to the air one. Oh Jesus. Yeah, they can nab you sometimes. There's also an extra pile of rocks that can only be dug up for a quest. You'll find several spots like that in the game, most out in the open for any sucker to fall for, but that's all the diggable gear in this section. If you know the lava blurring trick in advance, you can just access Area 2 from the very beginning and acquire some broken gear for maybe speedrunning purposes on a no-cheat any percent. And any percent speedrun with the cheating debug takes less than 10 seconds. You just enter core and then enter chapter 9 and the game's done. Pretty anticlimactic, it's just who can type the fastest or prioritize their clipboard, but if you want to challenge yourself, build your stats in Chapter 0 using gear solely from Area 1. Speaking of cheating, I'm going to do this just for completion's sake and grab this one extra burial spot item. Type move 28 and you'll find a pile of rocks with an ice talon. This chunk of desert isn't connected to any part of the map. I believe it was a test spot to see if the rock pile digging works. At any rate, the talon is identical to the claw in terms of melee function and low AP cost, but the damage it does is absolutely insane. We won't be using talons until later on in the game, as there is another one accessible in Area 2, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The talon's just to complete my collection. Anyway, here are all the diggable items in Chapter 0, with the exception of that unobtainable quest item, as well as their exact cheat coordinate number. Now for enemy farming drop spoilers. Skip to this part if you don't want to hear about drops, gear analysis, and stuff like that. All 3 Gopna types in this area drop useful pieces of gear for Chapter 0, and I will list off the enemy gear drops now. Out of these, Water Gopna are the most efficient to farm first. They and the Ice Gopna are pretty easy to fight at level 0, with Earth Gopna being slightly more tedious, and Water Gopna drop the most useful piece of gear overall, Greaves and a Spear. Not to mention, they give the highest XP. If you are playing as Ice, farming the Ice Gopna is also beneficial to get Ice versions of those Greaves. But by the next chapter you'll find more powerful Greaves, so I wouldn't worry too much if none of them drop the gear you want, though you'll have to fight Ice Gopna again if you want Ice Shards. They're the only Rahi in the game that gives them, other than the Protodermis Burnak. I always fight Earth Gopna later for the Earth Kanohi, as it gives you an extra point of range, but Garen will give you a freebie defense Kanohi of water if you're too impatient to farm but want that extra range going into Chapter 1. But the Earth Kanohi is attack, not defense, so if that's your preferred angle of combat, nothing's stopping you from farming them for completion's sake. If you're desperate for any Kanohi before Garen gives you a freebie, the aforementioned Ice Gopna also drop a defense Kanohi, so you can expand your farming reaches if you get tired of fighting Earth Gopna. As seen in the visuals, Protodermis Burnak do occasionally drop a random shard, and that's about it. It's a boss that stole Garen's equipment for a quest, and there's no point in farming it, as it gives nothing other than that random shard every once in a while and never travels in groups. Save the fight for the actual quest. Now about the other weapons. The Zamro launcher has an immaculate range, but in-universe it's just a crystal sphere that houses whatever substance you put in it, in this case being elemental energy, and then this crystal sphere passes right through its target, losing tangibility and spilling whatever liquid contents it has into the target before reappearing as a solid empty ball on the other end. In other words, it's a crystal water balloon, so don't expect its damage to be particularly high. It also has finite ammunition, which won't be a problem as you probably won't use it against Gopna too frequently, but the ammo will play into the game later on when more powerful Zamro launchers, enhanced Zamro launchers, are accessible and used more often in combat. Its AP cost is 6, the same as your natural attack, so you can mix it with the claw if you shoot from far away and then get closer. You cannot point blank with it, balancing its usefulness with the claw by a bit. Oh, alright, got the Kanohi. That was fast, usually the item that takes the longest to get for me. And we got Greaves! As expected, you can see my movement point to the bottom left change from 3 to 4. While I'm farming, I suppose I can talk about the story a little more. Unfortunately, the story and game engine, as mentioned before, were kind of developed separately, and likewise, in my opinion, the gameplay style doesn't really fit the story as well as it could. VNOGs 1 and 2 have the creative freedom to make the story revolve around the gameplay, but here they feel like two separate things. The 2006 story arc is very much a subversion of older story arcs, as in 6 canisters show up, and instead of the good guys who save the island, they're the bad guys who take over, and then the surviving Matoran are rugged, determined, battle-worn, and much more experienced in combat than the Anika who arrive. Likewise, this isn't as heavily established in the expo at the beginning, so for the player it feels very alien to play as a super powerful Toa and get bossed around by a Matoran who acts like he knows, and technically does, more than the player. Like, wow. rude. I feel this Toa Matoran subversion dynamic had potential to be explored much further, but ankama was on a schedule, yada yada. They did what they could to fit the pre-existing story elements LEGO cooked up into the game, simply not having the time to think things further, or simply being slightly disconnected from its commissioners. Really, there could be any reason for why it came out this way, but it stands as a missed opportunity. We'll just have to get the spear later. Still a pretty good drop RNG on this run, though. Alright, time to continue the quest. Fight 5 ice Gothna to get ice metal pieces from them. It says Ice Rahi, meaning Burnout count 2, but we don't have access to Area 2 yet unless you know how to get past the lava ape without Garen's instruction. A simple fetch quest. We're gathering resources so he can give us a freebie mask. Screw you, Garen, I'm getting that spear. A bit of trivia. This screen is the smallest coordinate number in the game that isn't assigned to a test area, in this case, number 21. With that in mind, I like to imagine that it was the first screen of the map made, and is coincidentally where I had my first combat encounter. Oh awesome, I can talk about spears now. The spear is also a nice utility weapon, being a short-ranged cardinal attack that pushes the target away, but also can't be used point blank. Its AP cost is 5, so unlike the claw, you cannot use it with your natural attack or Zamors in one turn, unless you have some kind of armor to give you 1 extra AP, which I thankfully have now. Oh right, your own natural attack. It's a powerful starter move, and remains useful throughout a majority of the game because, even when more powerful weapons outdamage it, it still has the bonus utility of removing AP from a target, which can later be used to some broken effects. It's omnidirectional and ranged, but not too ranged, perfect for fighting Gothna. Back to questing, we need to fight the Burnak to get Garen's equipment. Like most Burnak, Proto over here has an AI of using a short-ranged move similar to our own natural attack and advancing towards the player, sometimes moving away. Most Burnak moves just deal damage, but this one deals water damage because liquid protodermis and removes a range point. Sadly, this mechanic doesn't decrease your range if you don't have a mask on that boosts your range to begin with, and the irony of it all is that defeating it grants you the equipment that Garen uses to make a mask for you. Quite sad. They should have made the Burnak debuff movement or AP instead, or even better, make you fight it after Garen makes you a mask. After reporting back to Garen, he asks for the 2 metal pieces which we already found in advance. Before we hand them over, however, he gives us our defense kanohi of water that we worked so hard for. As you can see, armors, or equipments as they're known, give a set amount of attack or defense to all elements and then double for the element in question. This applies to our attack kanohi as well. I'm going to stick with the attack kanohi since health is instantly restored after a fight, but feel free to use what you think is more comfortable. Finally, handing over the metal pieces leads to your first escort quest. You have to click on him again to activate it. In later escort quests, sometimes he accidentally says the same line twice instead of his first intended line, but more on that in later chapters. I still do not know what causes this glitch. Whenever you enter a fight when escorting him, he will run to a safe location, turn intangible, and do absolutely nothing. Just get him to the log bridge and make sure to talk to him the second time. Man, water spears work wonders on this Earth Government. I guess it's a good demonstration of weaknesses in this game. Talk to Garen, escort Garen to a little jungle island. Garen gives you clear instructions on what to do, but like a lot of blind runners, I made the classic mistake of seeing the lava ape, attempting to fight it, and losing horribly as it dodges my every move. With a spear, launcher, and medium greaves, you can loop lock the lava ape along the bridge as you fight, regardless of level, but we don't have that equipment yet, so create a diversion once, let it walk up to you, and run. Sometimes it doesn't work as well from far away. That's weird, I guess we'll just have to try again. Remember to be patient and only break into a sprint when he stops moving, otherwise he'll just continue to walk up to you and chase you around. We have finished the first chapter, or technically the 0th chapter. Not too bad, right? We learned the basics, got acquainted with certain items and mechanics. Now chapter 1 is where it gets interesting. Well done, Toa, but there's plenty left to do. Are you ready? Ready.